Welcome back, everyone. I don't know if you remember, but it really wasn't too long ago that we were looking at Tucker Carlson screaming about World War III when Trump sent bombers over Iran to take out their nuclear facilities. Tucker was serious about this, too. He was genuinely warning everyone that there would be Middle Eastern escalation to the point of war. Now, we knew then that war wasn't even a remote possibility. Tucker was making a complete fool of himself. Well, fast forward a few months, guess what? He's doing it again. He sat down with an interview with Colonel Douglas Macgregor and decided to try to convince us that, yep, we are in danger of going to war, but this time with Venezuela. Now, in a moment, we're going to talk about why this is a total joke in the same way that Tucker's proclamation of war with Iran was a total joke, but for now, this is the behavior we've come to expect from Tucker. He's the son of a wealthy family. I mean, he has nothing genuinely invested in his politics. I don't even think he even cares about any of his beliefs because it's just like obvious that he doesn't even do any serious research. He just hosted Nick Fuentes on a show. This kid is the biggest troll. I've attempted to watch like 3 of his videos and I couldn't get more than 3 minutes in each time. It's completely embarrassing that this guy speaks for anyone on the right. So everybody, let's look at what Tucker thinks. Let's look at what he thinks about our troops going down to Venezuela really fast. Then we'll switch back to reality.
There's so much going on right now in this country that you may not be aware that there is a U.S. naval armada steaming toward Venezuela, which is a large oil-rich country in South America, not too far from here, actually. And the stated purpose of this show of military force is to force the leader of that country, Nicolas Maduro, to leave. And the threat is, unless he leaves, vacates the premises, gives up his job, turns over the reins to the opposition party, splits Venezuela for good, the United States will go to war with Venezuela. Caracas, Venezuela, the main population center and capital of Venezuela, is about 475 miles by sea from San Juan, Puerto Rico, the American protectorate. So really from our country. It's pretty darn close, super close. And that's significant not because Venezuela's SEAL teams are going to blow up Puerto Rico, but because wars tend to precipitate huge movements of people. They cause migrant crises. They cause massive and irreversible demographic change.
Now, as you can plainly see, he thinks it's not such a good thing that the United States would send down troops in order to get regime change in Venezuela. We are morally incorrect to force a dictator to leave his post, as if that were some type of controversial position. The Trump administration, they could not want Maduro out for any good reasons. None that Tucker could find, at least, in his serious efforts at research. It could only be warmongering, the likes of which make dreaded neocons salivate. Lives would be lost, and Tucker wants us to believe one of the most disastrous consequences of all this warmongering will be devastating immigration. Neighboring countries, including Puerto Rico, will be flooded with immigrants. So, it's safe to say that all of us on the political right are concerned about immigration, putting Tucker aside. As a matter of fact, it's one of our main concerns. Biden betrayed us, and we all couldn't wait to vote for Trump. And you know what? Getting back to Tucker, he knows this. Like the smooth grifter he is, he chose immigration as the hot button issue to slam down on and make everyone aware of. This is his way of getting us to believe the Trump administration is doing something wrong. Except everything he said is completely misleading nonsense. The truth is that if the Trump administration does succeed in regime change, just the opposite is going to happen. The truth is, if you really only want the Venezuelan immigrants who are currently in the U.S. to go back home, then you really want Trump to succeed in a regime change. Tucker, he couldn't lie or mislead anyone any more than he's doing right now. So let me explain all this. See, since 2014, Venezuela has seen a record number of migrants flowing out of their country. Estimates are around 7.7 million people, 1.4 million of them going to Colombia alone. The rest to surrounding countries like Puerto Rico and the United States, among others. 20% of the Venezuelan population fled in what is considered the biggest evacuation crisis in the history of Latin America. And why did all of this happen? Well, the answer is pretty simple. You know it already. Nicolas Maduro and his socialist corruption. It started with Hugo Chavez, of course, but it came to an all-around barn burner when Maduro took over. Since he took office, conditions in Venezuela have never been more dire. The country has experienced hyperinflation, food and medicine shortages, a collapsing infrastructure, and many other problems, besides which that have been exacerbated. People there lack healthcare, roads, sanitation, transportation, all the basics that we take for granted. Their families go hungry. And all this happens while Venezuela has the largest amount of proven oil reserves in the world. I mean, in theory, Venezuela should be a wealthy nation. They used to enjoy that wealth before Chavez and Maduro. The people there should be thriving. But thanks to Maduro, they are at the bottom of the barrel in just about all categories. And amazingly, through all of this, you would think the people who fled, you'd think they'd be spiteful. You'd think they would never want to go back. But the statistics tell another story. According to a study reported by Bloomberg, 65% of the Venezuelans living in America would go back if Maduro gets ousted. So let's do the math on that. Currently, we have around 900,000 Venezuelan immigrants in the U.S. 65% of that is somewhere around 580,000. This means that we could potentially see over 500,000 immigrants go back home if Trump succeeds in regime change there. And you know what? It's also safe to assume that it wouldn't only be Venezuelan immigrants from America going home. What about all the immigrants in neighboring Colombia? They're that much closer to home. They'll be inclined to go back. How about those in Puerto Rico and other countries? America is presumably much more comfortable to live in than all of those countries right now. So if 65% of them want to leave here, yeah, it's probably safe to assume a good percentage of the people from those other countries would also want to go home as well. All in all, we could possibly see somewhere around 1 to 1.5 million immigrants or more go home. Maybe those numbers aren't precise, but they're a reasonable assumption, aren't they? Now, let's revisit Tucker's grift. He wants us to believe that immigrants could be flooding other countries if the U.S. goes in for regime change. But the real problem here is that he is doing what a grifter does so well. He's constantly fear-mongering about what the most disastrous results could be instead of logically and realistically outlining what the military is most likely going to do. He's ignoring the probabilities for clicks. So how about we get a realistic picture of what the probabilities are of what the military is going to do down there? No, Trump is not sending troops down there to start a war. There will be no ground invasion with the intentions of diving deep into Venezuela and trying to colonize it or take it over. We're not looking to conquer Venezuela at large. We sent down approximately 10,000 troops across the board. That might sound like a lot, but it's not. Matter of fact, it's not very much. Around 7,000 of those are there for some type of support, and this is typical in the military. For every soldier pounding the ground, they usually have 1 to 3 support staff supplying things like logistics, information, technology, food, and all the other things you need to keep a military going. Venezuela is also around 60% dense forest and jungle with mountains covering most of the rest. It would take at least, and when I say at least, I mean, man, I'm being gracious. It would take at least 100,000 troops on the ground to capture Venezuela. It would take them more than that, to be honest. Then it would take at least 300,000 more of our military support staff, and all of this is, like I said, a gross understatement. Now imagine what we would need is engineering and support staff as we press down into the jungles, too, if we were to invade. The logistics here are off the charts, and to be honest, the more I think about this, we don't need to go any further. Going to war to try to capture Venezuela would just be outlandishly stupid. We would spend untold amount of money, send in hundreds of thousands of troops, all to capture a jungle-filled land that wouldn't be worth the hassle to maintain. This would all happen too, by the way, while leftists here at home would be protesting and making everything just that much more uncomfortable to deal with. Because the leftists in our government, for some reason, hey, they aren't willing to listen to the actual Venezuelans telling them that they want Maduro out. So, there's more too. And this is kind of funny because Tucker wants you to get to know Caracas. If you watch his video, this is Venezuela's capital, and it's got to be the focal point of a Trump disaster, according to Tucker. He says it ominously when he says it, too. It's an invasion of Caracas is sure to lead to nightmarish conditions. So let's get to know Caracas. And there it is, on the northern tip of Venezuela, easily accessible, not deep down in the rainforest. Couldn't be an easier place to capture if the Trump administration actually did want to do this. All easily accessible by our Navy and its fleet. An Air Force would not have to fly deep, and soldiers would not have to trudge too deep into dense jungles. If Trump really wanted to capture that city, Tucker actually just made him look good. Thank you, Tucker, for pointing out that Caracas is where Trump might potentially go. All right, so Tucker looks like a fool. What are we likely to do then? Why the heck is our military built up out there? It's an honest question, and it's a good question because there's a lot of oil there too, and people naturally get suspicious. Big military, big oil. It's okay to raise eyebrows. Yes, we are there for the regime change. 100%. Trump has already said it. Lindsey Graham has already said it. Everybody knows it. We don't even need to debate it. I don't need to post anything. And you know what? This is what we should be surprised about. We shouldn't be surprised, if you are surprised, that there's regime change coming. We should be surprised that it's not being reported, that statistically, this is what the people of Venezuela want. Why aren't people talking about what the actual people of Venezuela want? Around 70% of Venezuela does not want socialism. 63% don't believe Maduro is legitimate. People here in America are telling us they will go back if we do. They're actually saying, bye-bye, I want to go back to Venezuela. Please kick Maduro out. So what the hell is the problem with our political left here? And what is Tucker's problem? Well, it's obvious, people. They both hate Trump. And it doesn't matter. The reality of the conditions for the poor people of Venezuela don't matter. What matters is TDS. So what we're likely looking at, when you break it down, is a brief incursion to either assassinate or capture Maduro and facilitate a regime change. And the rest of our military is stationed there, all outside the area, to back up the ground troops. It's primarily backup. It's a way of ensuring Maduro doesn't go ballistic and do something stupid. He has to know he is surrounded, and he has to know that he can't go bananas and start using his military for some unforeseen stupid reasons. If we were to only send in 100 troops in a kind of a snatch and grab situation, yeah, this wouldn't scare Maduro. He could dodge that, and then he can employ his military in some type of weird response that would capture the media's attention and send all of the leftists, including Tucker, aflame with more media attention. So what do we do? Well, I'll tell you, we have the CIA survey the area like we did. We coordinate different parts of the military. We set up a plan for action. We wait till the aircraft carrier arrives for offshore support because it's probably today's the first. It's probably there right now. Then we go in and we finish the job. This all depends on where Maduro is identified to be. Of course, it's not for certain he's going to be in Caracas. That's Tucker, but good chance he is. The whole thing will be focused, too. Minimal loss of resources and lives. Times have changed. Technology provides for accuracy and efficiency that we didn't have in the past, and that's pretty much it. This isn't a complicated situation. People want it to be complicated because people see military and oil, and they get suspicious. And then the left sees Trump, and they just find their reasons to hate. Unfortunately, we have people on the right, besides Tucker as well, who also fall victim to that nonsense. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. If you're still wondering about the oil situation, I'll briefly touch on that because it's not a conspiracy it's not the conspiracy that people who oppose Trump want you to believe. Yes, the reserves there are the biggest in the world. Statistically, though, around 90% of it goes to China, the rest to Cuba and others who oppose America. It would be really nice to cut off China and give control of the Venezuelan oil back to a capitalist president who is pro-Venezuela and who might actually make the country healthy and functional again. I mean, I know it's not a perfect process. Lord knows we're going to have people screaming about, oh, CIA did this in the past and look at all the failures. Yeah, we can cut all that out. It's called not being afraid of failure. Being afraid of failure isn't the guiding principle we use to take action in the future. If that were the case, we wouldn't even get in our cars and drive to work. The people here would benefit. Our enemy China would take a hit. Venezuela could go back on a track to thriving again. We could have a formidable ally against Colombia. Look at that. We could have a formidable ally against the biggest cocaine producer in the world and their drug trafficking. And yes, America could profit in the process as well. This whole thing, it reeks of success, profitability, and people thriving. It's no wonder grifters like Tucker and our political left hate it. Take care, everybody. See you in my next one.